So that's $1 million, and we're already 400,000 in the hole from the third teacher step, right?
Right, so 1.2. So we just got a little bit nervous recently, and we didn't know this until a week or two ago. So
That's because the way the pupil units grow in the state, we got less allocation.
and academic assistance money that went down. So anyway, the amount of money received from the state recently went down for this current school year, not for next year. And so that's why, 1.7, I had 2.1, I started getting nervous, and now, I'm even more nervous now. So that 1.7 is a little bit high to me. Anyway.
So for this, you're talking about we lost money in our current year.
Yes.
But we're already 400,000 short.
Right.
So what, I think, if I understand right, correctly, we're gonna have to dip into the fund balance more for 15-16 school year between now and June. So our fund balance was like 19%. So when we get ready to go into 16-17, our fund balance, I'm like Danny, I'm worried too.
It's lower, plus your budget will go up.
Right.
So that percentage will decrease.
Yeah.
So, but that's, if we use fund balance, and that's a pretty aggressive approach, that's winding up a little bit less than 18% was 2.1. So that right there puts you up a little bit higher, 1.7. So, that's around 18.1 or 2, and that's based on what I just told you about losing money unexpectedly during the middle of the year. So
When's the next reassessment?
we just lost you. When's our next update, or budget update?
In other words, when might this 444 go up or down? Do we
Well,
know?
it's always changing, based upon how you got new growth going on. So,
Well,
we figure you can consider probably about 1% growth, maybe 1.5%.
but no, what I'm talking about is reassessment.
Yes, that's every 5, got 4 or 5 years.
4 more
I think
years.
it was last year we got that
Yeah,
reassessment.
like 4 years, you got another 4 years to go.
Because that's when we get a big hit, either taxes go up or they drop slightly, so.
We come up about $872,000 short right here if you went with this funding plan. And, we've talked about it, and you guys may have a better plan than this, but we wound up about 1.96 mil short of where we had to be. And if you project it out, and, it is a moving target in terms of the state could give us more money in some other areas, our fund balance could go up. I feel pretty comfortable above 17. And, ideally you want a 20% or 20% fund balance and everything else, but it's not an ideal world right now when it gets down to your needs, because we've got a lot of needs to meet. So, where is that threshold? 17, okay. You get an emergency, you got money to keep on going for a while. So, I could wind up around 17, 18 and feel comfortable.
But I think, looking strategically, we're dipping into the operational budget of the district. A lot of people said, well, why did you guys give step increases for teachers and make up those steps all at one time? And if you talk to your colleges and things like that, you've got less and less people going into education right now. Education is going to be the nursing 4 or 5 years from now. You're going to have to give bonuses to get people to come into education. And how much of our workforce is going to be retired in the next 5 to 10 years?
Right at 95, I believe.
95%?
We want quality.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's our goal, is to have quality teachers.
Just in
And you can't just get, you're replacing all these people that's going out the door. And so we're going to have to look 5 or 6 years down the road at our operational budget and the impact that's going to have on our operational budget, because we're going to be competing with other districts for teachers. And so we can't be just dipping into the budget that we pay people with to take care of these capital needs.
And we can't cut that like we've done in the past, to cut the teacher pay in order to meet everything else, which is what we've done in the past.
And I refuse to cut our quality in this district.
If you slide that back down just a second, Mr. Bowers.
Okay, yeah, I want to make a point. We'll go along with Brian in just a minute.
And what they're saying is that 1.7, the reason it's not out here is you never know what you're going to have. And budgets have to be standalone to be stable in the long run. In other words, 3.25, if that was enough money to pay for all this, that's what you call a stable budget. And you want to stand on, in other words, borrowing from mixing budgets is not good in public education. Auditors would tell you the general fund budget needs to stand alone, and then this budget needs to stand alone. So in 5 years, you know, the district has to come up with a plan to say, okay, this is paid for from this budget right here, and not by mixing budgets. It's just a bad philosophy.
Yeah.
And you can, I don't care if you're working at Duke or wherever, they're not gonna tell you to mix budgets and live off of it in terms of what we're doing right now. Talk to any auditor, talk to the most best minds, financial minds, and they say it's a mistake to depend on that. So eventually, we gotta get to where it's stable for the long run, like Mr. Bowers was talking. We got a 20-year plan. We gotta get 5 years down first before we talk about 20. But the fact that we admit the problem is probably the most encouraging thing for me as superintendent. We admit what our problems are now. And now solving it, hey, these guys have a tough job as board members. You know, raising taxes, consolidation, solving problems. These aren't easy. These aren't easy, but at least they understand the problem, and that's what I appreciate. Thank you, Ms. Bowers.
Let me, I wanted to make a point. Thank you. I wanted to make a point here. Right now, we're looking at the capital needs, but what Dr. Merck alluded to was the teacher issue, and Dr. Swords, if we don't figure out how to get more efficient, we're looking at huge tax increases down the road. I'm telling you, in the magnitude of Danny or Mr. Webb, probably 20 meals to cover this, because an operating meal's only worth that 400,000 down there. That includes 4% and 6% property.
And I think it's good to point out too that you haven't seen a lot of economic development in Pickens County.
Right.
So if we start sacrificing quality of our schools, that's gonna go down even further. Our property value is gonna go down even further. And so the value of that meal is gonna go down with it. So we
Right.
can't sacrifice the quality of our schools because that directly impacts it.
Right. So we can't do this. The 442 millage increase is only for capital needs. The tax increase it's going to require to maintain our schools and for teachers and operations costs, that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that comes out of the only the 6% property. So the value of a meal for 6% is $273.
About 273, 280.
Yeah, 273. So about half. So whatever we do here, it takes twice as many meals to get the same amount of money. Guys, I don't have to tell you, y'all know, we're facing some tough times ahead if we don't make some decisions on saving money. And let me show you how we save money and we don't sacrifice student performance. Going back to the charts I showed you earlier, there's a lot of evidence that larger schools, you get better student performance. And just based on, Danny's been covered up, we've been working him to desk the last few weeks, but I can show you, this is operating. For every one of these schools that we don't spend money on, we save a good bit of money in capital, but it's about $1 million operating cost on the operating side for each school. So, just for instance, A.R. Lewis, Haygood, Holly Springs, and what's the other one? Ambler. For instance, if we consolidated and made two, that's initially it's about $1 million a year, and that number increases this year. It's the staff retires because the discussion's been we wouldn't lay anybody off, but as the staff retires, you shrink, and over time, Danny, it gets up to about $1.8 million, right, in that neighborhood. So we're looking at over the life of this period here, this 5 years, we could potentially save $4 million about it which could go to improving our teacher pay and lots of other things that we need to do.
So
Did I say something wrong?
No, but if you go back up and look at technology.
You want some more money, I know.
You hear me covered that?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at, some of those hardware systems, like the Meraki wireless and all, you would save some money there cutting, not doing as
Really?
many schools. So
Because
it's not
those are-
just, there's capital needs built into the technology portion, it's not just end user technology. But like every 5 or 6 years, we have to completely redo our wireless because the access points have to read different signals because as wireless changes inside of the devices, like as they move from, 802.11 to AC, then to AD, et cetera, you're gonna have to update your access points. And that's a cost at every facility. So there's capital needs in the technology side for actual hardware that's related to the building
Yeah.
and not just to
Just to-
the
yeah,
end
like for
user
this.
devices.
The student teacher, that's always going to,
That's a
stay.
wash,
but
right.
some of these other costs.
The switch and the access
That classroom
points.
presentation, that you should see that reduced.
Classroom presentation, intercom, Meraki wireless, and the switches and the access points, because the switches are for each site. And
Wow, that's a pretty big number right there, 300,000.
well, that's because we're gonna have to upgrade the access points.
And that's in every school, right?
Correct, and so if there was a reduction in sites, then there would be some cost savings on all of those areas.
Good.
So it's not just, I don't want you to think it's just like HVAC and roofs where you're gonna save some money with the school facility.
Good, that's a good point, thank you.
So I didn't quite understand the logic behind the idea that if we're gonna have significant dramatic retirements over the next few years, which would mean you replace those people with, less senior people, how you're gonna have what is that, 80% increase in the operations savings? How does that work?
You're talking about as people retire from the consolidated schools? That was,
If it's just 1-for-1, right, you just overall your labor costs, your operations costs would go down. But if it's 1-for-1, people coming in and out, I don't quite get how that works.
well,
I'd like you to the expert on that, Charlie.
What I would say in 2018, Terry finally sunsets out, and we probably are looking at like 95 instead of 96%, 95%. It's 95 people we are expecting to retire. And so, like this year, you have on the books 15 people that are going to retire. So those are 14 positions that as we head into staffing or into whatever plan y'all evolve with, those are 14 positions that we don't have to replace, that can be absorbed through attrition, and we're able to shuffle people instead of people going home or being reduction force like we had to do years ago, that we're able to shuffle out. So we in essence lose those 14 positions at $55,000 average
I
cost.
think that the language that you used was that it gives the impression that the resources will be stable. And what she's basically saying is that you consolidate schools and over time your resource base will decline because you have less teachers.
Yeah, I think.
So nobody loses a job, but there will be jobs lost, job opportunities lost.
yeah, we're at 2,000 employees now. If we close 2 schools, we might go to 1,500 or whatever the number is. I don't know what the number is. Does that make sense?
And then overall, from an operational perspective, it seems to me that if we're going to have dramatic retirements, in the order of what she said a second ago, then your overall operations cost will decline because you're going to be retiring those with less senior people.
Yeah. The ones that retire, pay is up here, and the ones that bring in, pay is down here. So there's some advantage to that, but we eventually have to.
I think that's what I was alluding to, Henry. I think you're seeing a trend right now with the state this year kicking an extra 3% on top of the step increases. That's one of the proposed, I think that's the budget coming out of the House. And when you look at that, with the study that came out this past week of the number of people going into teaching, a third of them leave within the first 4 years. So if you get a third of your teachers walking out the door within the first 4 years, there's going to be some strategies put in place, I think, and the state's going to mandate it, that we offer some type of financial incentive to keep those teachers in the classrooms up front.
So let's talk about that for a second. Because I understand that you're talking about crisis, et cetera. But so So I talked to the State House member who said that this year that they think that, Ms. Haley is recommending taking $80 a kid base cost increase. You do the math on that. It doesn't cover our step increase or the 3%. So I got kind of curious there, how if you mandate something, you don't pay for it. You're making your problem somebody else's problem. It seems a little,
We're gonna have to put pressure on the state too. I mean, they've gotta do their part. We're back up to pre-recession levels in our budget, but we haven't got up to pre-recession funding in education.
Point of clarification, talking about positions that reduce through attrition over time, those would not be teaching positions. Those would be all the other support positions outside the classroom. Because the teaching positions stay the same based on the number of students we have.
That's right, if you've got the same number, we're not reducing the number of students, so, exactly, and we're not increasing ratio, so you gotta have the same number of students. That's a good point, thank you, John.
More money for classroom teachers.
Yeah, you have less janitorial, less janitorial contracts. I've learned we have a lot of contracts for janitorial service as well. The power bill, it's amazing what the power bill is at some of these buildings, particularly, what's the north side? The one at north side where the adult ed? It's built in 1920, has no insulation. It's got a gas pack out there. I mean, it is sucking gas down like nobody's business, boy, trying to keep that building warm. So that's one of the priorities. So good point, John. Thank you. I'm going to look over this and make sure you got everything.
so I think the next question there is, this is the one that I've gotten, is if we have excess facility, we have excess capacity in so many places, why would we consider adding rooftops to our overall building ownership versus using some of the facilities that we already own, we've already built, for dual purpose? For instance, here in this school, incredible increase in the size of the school, under capacity by a significant percentage. Doesn't appear to be much appetite for changing the district attendance lines. So why would we consider $1.2 million a year to build a place where you could cordon off the area and put in some of these programs that you're talking about? Well, why couldn't adult ed be done at Career Center?
It is.
The majority of time.
We talked about it yesterday.
Yeah.
There's a proposal to do that, but it's, I'll let you talk about it, Brian, because it's political.
Well, and going on what you said, what you want to do is do that, but minimize the impact on the students. So we've got to look at, for instance, when you start looking at adult ed, there's been some talk about Tri-County and adult ed kind of joining up. We're about to see that model take place over in Oconee County. We're building a multi-use facility where we're going to have the Career Center, we're going to have adult education, Tri-County Tech will have a campus, and economic development will all be in the same building. So the county, the school district, and the college are all going together doing one thing. There's been a lot of talk of us utilizing the Career Center, especially some of our engineering programs over here at the Easley campus is busting the students. We currently have an adult education program that's based on our campus in Easley, and it's very successful. We're transitioning a lot of students through that. So if you look at that model, and we're looking at the future down the road, if we see that marriage work well in Oconee County, that might be a possible model to look at throughout the state. Right now, we've got the best, and I will say this, we have got the best adult education program. In Pickens County, I put us up against anybody in the southeast. Dr. Gaston is second to none when it comes to adult education. So we've got an absolutely great model. We don't want to tweak that too much. We don't want to mess that up. But if we can, let's say, put them in the Career Center and have the adult education in the Career Center. Tri-County Tech is utilizing some of those facilities in the evenings. Because we've got that building. That building is used from 8:30 to 2 o'clock, 9 months out of the year. We spent, $75 million on that building? We've got to get the best use of taxpayer funds out of that. So if we utilize it in the evenings, if we're utilizing it for adult ed and we marry those things together, that's just the biggest thing in your buck. And it doesn't cause that much. Matter of fact, it provides better opportunities for our students by doing that. So I think looking at that and exploring that a little bit further down the road, we know we're going to have to move adult ed we don't want to break that model up. But how can we parent in other things as we're going through this? That's when we're looking at how we can offer better opportunities for our students. If we can do that all together, you're offering much better opportunities for our students.
But there's one thing we talk about as well. You got 25, 30-year-old adult,
Right.
male, for instance, has a criminal record, but he wants to finish his high school or whatever. It's a gray area on putting that individual with students. And some of that goes on in the daytime. There's some adult education done in the daytime. So it's a great idea. I don't want to add rooftops. Matter of fact, from what I've looked at, there's a potential to eliminate 14 rooftops, 14 buildings we can eliminate if we go through this consolidation plan. Just a reasonable consolidation. That's not aggressive. That's just a reasonable consolidation plan. So I'm with you. I don't want to add rooftops. I want to reduce rooftops.
Well, what I know what y'all had discussed before was that using some of these older buildings, like Ken was talking about, so much work has to be done on those in order to use them. But it was much cheaper, I think, from what y'all said, like to do these metal buildings at the BJ Skelton.
I don't want to
To
get the
house
impression
some
that I
of
was talking
these.
about using any older buildings. What I was specifically talking about is we have excess capacity in the current buildings that we're operating. I don't want to give anybody the impression I'm talking about going and working at Pickens.
Or you're not talking about using some and closing. You're talking
No,
about
I
some.
didn't know that, I thought we were
There
talking
were.
about closing. I'm talking about, reusing like Pickens or that place over there in East we can't sell. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, if we got extra capacity in this building, why can't the back hall be, blocked off and put the C3 program over here?
And for the normal student, that's easy. The problem is when you put adults that might have some checkered past in here who want to improve themselves.
So what is it, 70 students there? So you're talking about maybe 10 to 15% of the adult population in America? So for 7 students, we build a new building?
No, I don't.
So,
No, we start putting.
so those 7 students, they have to have a background, you have to have a SLED to apply, and then they can only go in 9. Why is that? Does it seem to me like a huge positive argument against doing something assertive like that, like using the wrong facility?
And that's what I support. I support using the Career Center if we make it work. We just have to be mindful that some of these folks are, 25, 30 years old or however, and you don't want to jeopardize safety of the.
Well, it's doing that too. And like I say, we've got a model adult education program. So we want to get the input of our current adult education staff and faculty there, staff at the Career Center. How can we merge some of those things together to provide better opportunities for students? Not just move a program, but
Right.
how can we enhance those opportunities for students?
Yeah. Next on the agenda is that very thing. Not in favor of just consolidating buildings and continuing doing business the way we've always done. And you'll see some innovative things we can do. I suggest, any other questions? Barbara, how long is your presentation approximately?
I think we could do 15 minutes.
All right, okay, well, let's take a break then. Let's come back at 8:30 and then Barbara will talk. That's all right.